one element to every program, ministry, and event that's often overlooked: evaluating. It's important to schedule time during and after each ministry season or after each special event to measure the success of said ministry season or event. Did this ministry achieve its mission? Did the event connect with the right people? Without taking the proper time to evaluate, it's easy to get lost and move from one thing to the next without taking time to reflect.
Hey there, church communicator. Welcome to another episode of the Church Juice podcast. Whatever your title or role is at your church, this show is designed to give you the church communication and marketing tools, resources, and community that you need to be successful. We are here always energizing church communications, and I am with my incredible, energizing co-host today, Jeanette Yates. Hey, Jeanette.
Hello. How are you?
I'm great. We're recording on a Friday. It's like a holiday weekend, basically. So, it's good. But I'm also excited. So last week we talked about failure, right? And so the flip side of that is not everything is a failure. Hopefully we succeed from time to time, right? But one thing that, as you said in the intro, one thing that we don't do very well in ministry and in communications is spend time setting aside time to evaluate, defining success, measuring success, evaluating how things are going. So I'm excited to talk about that today. And I know that this is something that you've been working on a little bit lately as well. So excited to hear some of what you're doing too.
Well, I think, especially in ministry and any, there is no really time. We're talking like this in between things, but really there is no in between because Sunday's always coming. We talk about that and it's like, oh, woo, we got through that. Now it's time for the next thing, right? But I think if we do have some intentional times to debrief and say, we do have to evaluate, because otherwise we're wasting not only financial resources, but also volunteer resources, our own energy, and it's not producing what our goal is. So I'm really excited to talk about this too. I do feel passionate about kind of having a definition of what success is before you can even evaluate if you're successful. You have to define what it is.
You can't measure success if you haven't defined what success even means, right? I've found that in churches that I've either been a part of or worked with in the past, one thing that many church leaders don't like to do is define success, because we never know how the Holy Spirit's going to move. We never know, all of those things. But that doesn't mean that we can't create guardrails for the ministry or the event or whatever, or decide if this is actually something that's moving our mission and our strategy forward. There are ways to define success, even if it's not, we're going to see 15 people get saved at this event or baptized or whatever, right? But there are ways that we can measure success.
I think too, it's really important. I didn't think about this until, we hit record or it would have been in the notes. But another reason it's important to know what your metric for success is, not only for your church, your specific ministry event, is because you need to be on the same page as everybody else that's involved in this. So you may be thinking, oh, that event was a success because everyone ate the hot dogs, but that wasn't the point of the event. So, we didn't meet this. So everybody needs to be on the same page for what is expected. Yes, I'm going to keep bringing up the whole I advertised hot dogs when there weren't hot dogs thing. It's going to be a running thing. I need to let it go.
I see this a lot, that we don't we don't really set goals for events or for ministries. We don't really know the purpose sometimes. Like, it's just something that we've always done, so we're going to continue doing it, even though maybe our strategy for the church has changed, our vision for the church has changed, but we still do these programs.
Leadership has
changed. Right. Anything, like any of those elements, when they change, we still do the same thing that we've always done because it's just what we do. But when we take time, and I think one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this in the middle of summer is because for a lot of churches, summer is a time where we do special events, but we do less of the regular school year, ministry year type of programs. So it is a good time for us to define success for the coming year, evaluate what happened the previous year, and set some of those goals for what's to come. I think that's really important too.
Right. So in addition to evaluating like your VBS or something, that you're doing in the summer, you also want to maybe take the time to say, okay, well, let's evaluate our small group program from this past year, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I see that a lot in churches where we keep running, right? So So I think if we're going to measure success, we talked about setting goals. What do you think? What are some of those things that we should be looking for to help us determine success? I guess success versus failure, or to evaluate, the event or the ministry or whatever. What are some of those things that you think are important?
Well, it's funny because when I was working in my church, I didn't know a lot of marketing words. I just knew, what I was supposed to do every week was communicate internally and externally, right? But I didn't know, the more I learned, the more I understood that, there was the thread of what we were known for, what we were doing. There should be a thread that runs through and connects everything that we're doing. And so, like, how to explain that to my my staff members that had just been doing the same things that we'd always been doing, because that's, everybody does a VBS, everybody does a women's ministry, everybody does. And so we talked about how everything that we do, everything that's on the calendar, every program we have, everything that we do should point to the vision and hold up the mission. And if it doesn't hold up the mission of the church, if it doesn't point to the vision that we have for our specific church, then we need to either tweak what we're trying to do with said event or get rid of it altogether, or tweak what we're trying to do with the ministry or get rid of it altogether. So I think that's one just like basic thing is like, does this have anything to do with what we say our mission is?
Yeah, it's really a funny thing. I was just thinking as you were talking about this. I remember a few months ago, like this spring, talking with a church and telling them that sometimes churches focus too much on the mission or vision statements, right? But what we don't do is think practically about what that means for the church. Like, what things are we doing that are, like you were just saying, upholding the mission or working toward the vision of the church? What are we doing, and how do we live into both of those statements? We have them. We've spent a lot of time and energy and, whatever, creating these, and we believe in them, I would think. So what are we doing to uphold them, like you were saying, or to live into those elements that we think are essential to our church? It's not the gospel, obviously, but like for our church and our identity, this is who we are, right? So knowing how to measure that, knowing what that means, what we're trying to live into, those are great ways for us to think through as we plan events, as we evaluate events or ministries, to think through the lens of mission, vision, strategy, and how those are upholding those and living into those.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where if you can't answer that question pretty quickly and, then get rid of that, you need to like get rid of that thing. Or maybe like none of the stuff that you're doing, if none of the stuff you're doing seems to be aligning with whatever your mission statement says, maybe the mission statement doesn't really reflect what your actual
Sure.
mission is. So it's like the statement, but it's not. So either way, but that was a nice way of saying like, well, if it doesn't point to the vision and uphold the mission, but what does that mean? Like, how do we
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
like we could ask that question and maybe get a yes, no, maybe, but really then diving into success is going to require us to actually have some KPIs, which is a
That's right.
marketing term, key performance indicators, which just lets us know how well the event, the ministry is performing based on what we set our goal at in that first part, which is like, what is our goal,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And so you've got some different ones here that I want you to talk through a little bit. I'm going to put you on the spot now.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there. You know, we have ways to measure things, but it's always through the lens, through the filter of your church's mission and vision. So we have KPIs, we have, which is of course a marketing term, like you said, but these are measurable ways that we can measure success. Essentially, we define what we mean by success. So when you're planning your ministry, you're planning your event, planning this program, how do you define success? Then you can decide how we're going to measure that. If you're planning an outreach event for your neighborhood and you want to have 200 people at it, well, then that's your success. If you have 200 people from your neighborhood, that could be a success, right? We need to be able to measure that.
So I want to jump in here because that is a really interesting thing that you said. If you're having an outreach event and your goal is to have 200 people there, you have 200 people there, check. Like, that's success. However, if it is an outreach event What is your goal for the outreach? Is it to have 200 people that already attend another church, maybe attend your church? Or is it to have people who have not yet connected with a local church? So I think that's where you can kind of drill down into that even a little bit more because I can get you 200 people there, but they're going to be all my, my friends and relatives.
I said it could be success. If you want it
Yeah,
to
it could
be
be.
200 people
Right.
from your neighborhood and 200 people from your neighborhood show up, great. That might be success. My church actually just had a neighborhood party a few weeks ago, and I was talking to somebody after. They said, "Did you notice that we thought it was success because we had however many people there, but when we actually looked at who attended, none of them were from our neighborhood. We spent money on Facebook
Right.
advertising, and so they saw that there were, food trucks and inflatables and whatever. So they came,
Right.
but they're not from our neighborhood. They're not coming back
Yeah.
on Sunday. So there's no real relationship there. So we needed to then redefine what we meant. We needed to get more specific in our goals and
Right.
how we were going to define success there.
Yeah, we don't have this on our list, but the SMART goal principle applies here as
Yeah.
well. So there are different things that the SMART can mean depending on which article you Google, but basically you want it specific, measurable, attainable is the one I've seen, repeatable and timely. I can't remember what the R is, but specific,
Relevant.
measurable, attainable, relevant, of course. Yeah, duh. And then timely or have some sort of a time
Timeline,
thing.
yeah.
You can't say we want 200 people to come to this event and then count anybody that shows up to your church for the next year and be like they came to the event, they just were really really late. So you have to put a time
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah, so creating goals that are very specific and measurable, I think those
Mhm.
are the two that you
Right.
need to start with. But those other elements of a SMART goal, and we'll lay that out more in the show notes. Those are great ways to help you define what a success means for this program. But when we get back to KPIs, what things can we measure? There are tons of ways that we can measure success online with digital tools, right?
Mhm.
You have web analytics that you
Right.
could look at. If you have on your website, you could have landing pages if it's like something for a specific event or whatever, or track people's journeys on how they get to the registration or things like that. You can also do A B testing. You can try out different email messages or different landing pages, or you can test different things, even your social ads, and see what works best and go with that after you test it, and keep testing and keep optimizing that way throughout your campaign if you're advertising, or throughout the ministry year, whatever that is. So those are some digital ways. You can look at web traffic, how people are coming to you, where they're coming from, what pages they're visiting. For social media metrics, you could look at, are people, interacting with these posts, or if it's an event on Facebook, how are people engaging with that? Is your audience growing? Those kinds of things. Those are very basic ones. For email, you can look at, of course, you can look at open rates, which you just want to use that as kind of a foundation, like time over time, how people are using that. But you can look at what people are clicking through, how they're engaging with the email. Are they responding to your emails? You can look at attendance too. Make sure that you're always finding a way to track attendance, whether that's counting or just, getting people to register, things like that. So those are some ways just that you can measure what you think are key metrics to help you define whether you're successful in your event or ministry, or whether you need to make some changes. If you're thinking about the KPIs, you've created your goals, you're thinking about how do we measure this? I would say 2 or 3 key measurables or KPIs, key performance indicators, will help you really define if you're being successful or not. And that doesn't mean that something is a failure just because you're not meeting your
Right.
goal or the metric isn't performing well, but it might be that you need to make some adjustments, or make small changes throughout the year or something like that too.
And you might need to adjust your KPIs depending on, especially if you're using digital KPIs, because as things change, what used to be a relevant metric may not be
Yeah,
anymore. Like it used to really matter how big your Facebook group was. And now it's like, well, if you have a gajillion people in there, but only, your
right.
mom and your
Yeah, it's more about how
your
people are
aunts are
using it, right?
yeah, it's like, is it actually, people are
Yeah.
people engaging? So, just little things like that. Like if you're always failing those KPIs, it's like maybe those
Right.
KPI, like you need to change the KPIs or the
Yeah.
event, depending. Like it just kind of depends. But with those digital ones, sometimes it's just you need to come up with a
Right.
different KPI.
The other way that you can measure whether something is success is to actually talk to people, right? To get feedback, surveys, even though I talk against surveys all the time, to get feedback from people, to get evaluative feedback from people to help you evaluate those conversations face to face or however you do it. That's where I think you can learn a whole lot more often than you can, looking at web traffic.
Especially when your goal has to do with like a relationship building or connecting with people. It is interesting though to think about, feedback. It's hard because and evaluation too, actually, both of these things. Feedback is going to be more of that, what did the guests or what did the people attending seem to prefer? Or if you're doing a survey, what did they tell you they preferred or didn't prefer? But you have to be kind of prepared to get that feedback. And then, if you're evaluating things, it's not personal. So like, it's not, if your favorite thing that, you were in charge of for the fall festival was the least popular thing, it's not a reflection on you as a person. Like, you have to try to kind of prep yourself for the feedback and know that the ultimate goal is to connect with people, to start building relationships so that you can invite them into a relationship with Christ. And so even if they didn't like your doily station, I would love your doily station. I would come to it, but I'm just saying, might not. But it's not personal.
I think we spend a lot of time on feedback. So, did you like the food? What did you think of the presentation? Did you, how did the time work out for you? Those kinds of things. But we don't really spend a whole lot of time on evaluation with people. And that's more figuring out what they learned, what they walked away with. How did they implement whatever they were learning? How does it impact their daily life? Those are the questions that are more substantive, harder to measure probably, but also more important in a lot of ways. Yes, the details and the practical elements are all important and they can lead to success or hurt your success too, but the evaluation is where you're really going to learn if something is successful because of how it's affecting change in someone's life. So spending time and thinking through, how do we ask questions about what was actually learned? What do people walk away with? And, what are they doing with that? Those are ways and conversations that you can have that will speak into a whole lot more, speak into the success of your event or what needs to be changed and how you can make changes to be more effective in sharing the gospel or whatever it is that you're doing there.
I was thinking back on all of the many events that I've been a part of in the church world over the years. And there's not been one time, no matter how amazing the Vacation Bible School or the Fall Festival or the women's ministry thing or whatever, that there wasn't room to improve after that evaluation happened. So even if you hit all your goals, even if your success metrics are like ding, 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 like you're checking everything off, there's always a place to improve, to enhance, to kind of make it a little different, a little better. And so I think, if we take that time to truly evaluate, we'll always find something that we can do. And that's really what it's all about, that progress, that moving towards something better, that it creates more impact, creates more lasting change, things like that.
And I think that's really a good place for us to kind of wrap up today's episode. And I hope that as you watch or listen today, that you are walking away with something to help you implement in your communication or marketing strategy or just leadership strategy to help you define goals, to help you define success, to help you measure what that success is. And I would love to hear more from you. So if you haven't, make sure you join our Facebook group and we'll continue the discussion this week. And I would love to hear how you measure success for your ministry and programs as well. And if you haven't, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, then you won't miss any future episodes of the podcast.
On behalf of Church Juice and everyone at Reframe Ministries, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.